guys, Desmond Landers here, your startup advisor and partner in entrepreneurship. Welcome to the sharing economy. The sharing economy is a collaborative consumption idea that helps everyday people like you and me get maximum value out of resources that they currently own but were being underutilized. So an example of this is, let's say you have a home, right? And you're paying $1,300 a month in a mortgage. Well, let's say you have 1 or 2 extra bedrooms or some extra space in your room where someone could crash, a boarder or someone could stay overnight for you. Well, at the current moment, or at least up until a couple of years ago, you weren't able to maximize the full utilization of that home. But now with the concept of the sharing economy and this whole movement towards collaborative consumption, you're now able to do that. You're probably familiar with places like Airbnb or Zipcar, for example, which is the hourly car rental, or services like Bag and Borrow for clothes, or even services that allowed me to get this 2009 Porsche Cayenne called relay rides. These are services that allow people like you and I to be able to rent for a short term and period things that we already own, laptops, cameras, whatever it is, out to people in a marketplace for value, for financial extracted value in return. Now, what's interesting about this is that, we landed in Hawaii a couple of days ago for vacation, and I forgot to book the car. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot to book the car, and then, and literally within 24 hours, the prices quadrupled. So on Sunday, prices were affordable. On Monday, because of all the tourists and everyone coming in for some of the conventions, the prices were just unbearable, and I didn't want to pay, $150 a day for a vehicle that was this big. So I had to look at other options. I looked at a service called Relay Rides, which I actually was a little bit unclear about what they did because I had heard about them a couple of years ago, and at that time they were doing hourly car rentals like Zipcar. But lo and behold, what I actually found is that now they're doing car rental services very similar to what Avis, what Hertz Enterprise is doing. And so for the same price that I'm getting this Porsche Cayenne, I would have gotten like a Ford Fusion or like a Prius for the same exact price. So if you were me and you were on the island of Oahu, Hawaii, and you were driving around on the island, which would you choose for the same price? Would you want to get a Ford Fusion or a Prius, or would you want to get a Cayenne, even if it's a couple years older? That's what I wanted to do. So I just wanted to share with you that this concept about the sharing economy is extremely prevalent, and it's helping everyday people like you and I get access to resources that otherwise would have been hard to get. Now let me share something with you about the sharing economy. There's multiple segments. There's lodging, there's car rentals, there's hourly cars, there's clothes, there's photography and video equipment rentals, right? But what's interesting is that now there's an alternative to renting cars. So anywhere you land in the entire country, I at least know for sure that a company like Relay Rides will be able to service your needs through what's called peer-to-peer car rentals. All you got to do is hop on their website, pick the car that you want. They have 2 options for insurance. They have a $1 million liability policy where you could have a $500 deductible or a $2,500 deductible, and you can rent a car. So this is amazing, and this allowed me to get this Porsche Cayenne while we're here in Hawaii. So I've never driven a Porsche Cayenne before. I'm not sure if you have, or if maybe you own one or a couple, right? But some of these things are really cool to me, so I just wanted to share them with you. The first thing I like about the Porsche Cayenne is it's sleek. Now this is an older model, but the older ones and the newer ones are sweet to me, and I may end up purchasing one day. But I'm really happy about how they look and how they feel when they drive on the road. Now the other thing is that in addition to in addition to the aesthetics of it, right, I actually feel really safe in this vehicle. This is one of the vehicles that I've gotten in. I could probably count, maybe of all the vehicles I've ever been in, probably 3 that really, you feel like a tank when you're getting in. The doors are heavy. When you're driving, you feel like you're not going to just fly up off the ground when you're going fast. So it's really a really good vehicle. Now if you can come over here a little bit, I kind of want to show you a little bit of the inside. As you can see here, we've got just black leather, kind of how my car is, and you've got your standard dials and stuff here. But one thing that's kind of cool is that on the older models, even with these, they've got this area here that's a motion sensor. Now, what I noticed about the vehicle itself, right here, is that there's some blind spots. So that's one thing I kind of don't like about the Cayenne, but it's doable. And I didn't realize this until the 3rd day of driving it, is that those sensors were probably put there for a reason, because Porsche may know that there are some blind spots, right? So instead of saying, hey, we're not going to make the vehicle or we're going to do a different design, they were entrepreneurial in figuring out the understanding and identifying the challenge, and then adding a solution to it. So the solution is, don't redesign the car, just add sensors that go crazy when you're close to something. And honestly, initially it was kind of annoying, I'm not gonna lie to you, but actually it's really helpful because you know, like look at these rims. These are like 22s or whatever. I don't have anything to do with these rims, but I also don't want to mess the guy's rims up, right? So anytime I get close to the curb or something, then these sensors go off. So I know it's simple, and I know the newer models have all this craziness, but it was really helpful for me. The other thing I want to share with you is that there seems to be a lot of open space. This particular model doesn't have a sunroof, and in Hawaii I was really banking on a sunroof, but this has been a great experience and a great car. So there's a lot of space here. If you can kind of look at the, the back seat, you got a lot of space here as well. You can't really ask for too much. We had 3 or 4 folks that were at 5'10" and above, so there's a lot of space. If you got a family, you could probably get some children back there if this is kind of the SUV that you choose for yourself. And then the other thing that's kind of cool, and I really like, because I feel like I'm at Home Depot. Check this out. Oh yeah, look at that. I don't even have to raise my own trunk hood, right? So if you look in the back here, there's ample space. It's kind of sandy because we were at the beach kind of hanging out. We had sandals and all kind of crazy stuff from the beach in there. But I mean, this is a lot of, look at this. That's a lot of space. So, overall, I'm really happy with the vehicle. I guess 2 things I would say about the vehicle is that, one, I wish it had, for this particular model, which is probably a base model, I wish it had, like a little bit more acceleration. But then the other thing is, I think it could be a little bit better on gas, but for how heavy the car is itself and, probably the energy that it exerts, it's probably fairly good. So look, I'm happy. I'm riding around Hawaii in a Porsche for the same price as riding around Hawaii in a Prius. So if you were me, which one would you choose? Now in the next segment, I'm gonna give you some entrepreneurial homework that's really gonna get your mind thinking about what you can do to be a part of the sharing economy. Now many of you have probably seen the Going Global video that I did just across the island in Honolulu, Hawaii. Do you remember what the biggest challenge I told you was with Hawaii? Yes, you guessed it, that's cost of living. To an entrepreneur, that is the #1 enemy. There is nothing else. The cost of living directly is correlated to monthly fixed expenses, which burn or which decrease your burn rate, or they actually increase your burn rate, I'm sorry, and they decrease your runway, right? You want to get, if you're an entrepreneur, you got to get familiar with these terms. Runway, burn rate, directly correlated. Well, in Hawaii, it's hard to have long runway because your burn rate is so high per month, right? So the guy that I rented this from, really smart guy. He actually retrofitted his vehicle, if I can say retrofitted, right? He retrofitted this vehicle to actually be a taxi because he has a taxi company. So if you see, there's an on and off switch, and I think there's some funky stuff in terms of connections going on right here, where he was actually going to utilize this to be a part of his luxury taxi service. Now, here's the crazy thing about that. Do you know what stopped him from actually doing this? What stopped him was the prohibitive cost of insurance, right? Could you imagine paying 15 to 20 grand a year for insurance on something that will get you a return? But what does that do to a business where their margins are not so great anyway? It kills your margins, right? So what he did, as any smart entrepreneur would do, is he pivoted, right? Remember what that word means? A pivot is when you stop somewhere and you go in direction, like you got basketball, right? And they say pivot, move here, move here, move here, right? Entrepreneurs pivot all the time. The only difference is you can't just stay here. You also, you can't dribble in basketball, but you got my point. You got to pivot, you got to move forward. Well, this guy did that. Now, when he did that, he was able to find a peer-to-peer car rental service to fully maximize the value of the asset that he had purchased for another business venture. So now, instead of picking up people and driving them around, he actually is even doing better because I rented his vehicle and he's going about his life and he didn't have to drive me around. And he's still probably either making the same amount of money or maybe the margins are even higher. So you always want to stay on your P's and Q's and don't let challenges that are going to come up, don't let them stop you. Just put your critical thinking cap on, as they say in school, whatever that means, and actually figure it out, right? So I want to make sure, as I wrap up this video, that you all really understand the sharing economy. Again, the sharing economy is essentially a new concept where businesses and individuals and people are building marketplaces where buyers and sellers can come to maximize the full utilization of the fixed asset: car, clothes, laptop, camera equipment, construction hardware, vehicles, doesn't matter. So my question to you is, My question to you is, how can you go and utilize these on the buyer side, right? On the buyer side. If you land in Hawaii, you need a rental car, and every rental car is $150 a day. Where is your mindset in terms of finding an alternative option? Because we know a lot of people who just were walking around Waikiki and they weren't able to see the North Shore, they weren't able to go to Kapolei, they weren't able to go to Kaneohe Bay, which is right behind me, where Gilligan's Island is filmed, just literally right over there. They weren't able to do that because they didn't have the knowledge. Well, we were able to do that at the same rate that we would have been able to do it in a Prius, as I said before. So number one, try to figure out how you can get into this sharing economy and benefit from it as a consumer. Homework number two, which is more important and is directly in alignment with what you guys know I want you to do, is how can you find an asset, whatever that is, that people, everyday people own. A watch is an asset, a wristband is an asset, a shirt is an asset, right? My laptop is an asset, my bed is an asset, my bed frame is an asset. These are assets, right? That right now are sitting at my house, not being used. Well, what if I could rent some of those things out and they could maximize their full value, right? This is what's going on here. So my question to you and homework to you is, find 3 to 5 assets that you think could be are underused assets today with the everyday person, and create some ideas on how to maximize their utilization. And what I want you to do is I want you to call me 404-941-4148, or I want you to text me 404-941-4148, and I want you to share those with me or leave your thoughts in the comments, because if we can figure out the right idea, you just may be onto a new business idea. My name is Desmond Landers, your startup advisor and partner in entrepreneurship, and I wish you could be joining me in Hawaii, but until next time, I'll see you soon. Thanks.